The following program on KROC AM is sponsored and paid for by Meshbesher Spence.
Zach Bauer is in the house from Meshbesher Spence. How you doing, Zach?
Good morning, guys.
Did you get all your fall cleanup done?
We've had some interesting things have been occurring at our house recently, so we've actually been out of our house for about a month and a half.
Oh,
so
no.
We get fall
Sounds like
cleanup.
interesting that I don't, you know, that you don't like to have
we don't
happen.
need to go into it. So.
No.
Yeah, I've got all these zombie sedums that are just sticking up above the snow and taunting me.
Zombie sedum. Sounds like I don't know. Sounds like a rock and roll orchestra.
Well, I try to play it that way. You know, go kill the zombies, kids. And they look at me like, you're just trying to get us to do cleanup. What are we talking about today, Zach?
We're going to talk about some DUI.
All right. A lot gets to be a little more prevalent around holiday time.
Yeah, a lot more of DUI law enforcement. Kind of picks up their enforcement to some degree in November and December, and obviously people are out and about when it comes to Christmas parties and so forth. So yeah, it becomes much more prevalent.
All right. What do we need to know?
So I was
besides not drink and drive.
Well, yeah. Rule number one, probably a good idea that if you are going to have a few drinks at that Christmas party, make some arrangements on a safe way to get home. Don't put yourself in that situation if you can obviously avoid it, and you can really if you think about it.
It takes less alcohol than you think.
It does. It doesn't take much to get to .08 anymore, and people sometimes don't quite understand that. But if you do happen to come in contact with law enforcement, I was going to kind of walk them through the normal steps of what might occur.
Tell me all about it.
Those lights come on, and officer approaches you, and they're going to ask you some questions, usually at your window.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if they believe you've been under the influence of alcohol or at least been drinking, they'll have you get out and perform some field sobriety tests. Now, those field sobriety tests are voluntary. They're not required. A person certainly has the ability to say, and I would probably advise them to just simply forego those tests. We're talking about balance tests, the walk and turn, standing on one leg, and some people have problems performing those even when they're sober.
Yeah, that's me.
You know, if I was ever asked to recite the alphabet backwards, I'd say, can I phone a friend? Can I?
You should practice it.
Use your lifeline?
Yeah. I mean, okay, I can start with Z, and then I have to go from forwards in order to go backwards. And so, I mean, I don't know. That's too tough.
Yeah, I generally sometimes those tests don't necessarily show, I think from my perspective anyway, whether you are under the influence. Sometimes they can, but sometimes you can also kind of have a false positive to some degree based upon those tests. The key thing that you will have to do is either submit to a preliminary breath test, which is a test at the scene where they have you blow into a machine. If you don't submit to that, then they have the ability to arrest you just based upon the failure to submit. So you have to submit to that. That test is not admissible in court.
So forego the physical.
Forego the physical test. I think that's probably the right move to make, and then ultimately submit to the preliminary breath test. If you blow under .08, because of the fact that you didn't probably perform those other field sobriety tests, they'll just let you go at the scene. They may cite you for whatever reason they had to pull you over, but that may be the extent of it. If you do blow at .08 or higher, they will place you under arrest with the handcuffs, the whole deal, in the backseat of the squad car, and then down to the jail. And one of the key things that I get as far as a lot of phone calls at night is when people get down to the jail, they are advised that before you make a decision about taking a test, that you have the right to consult with an attorney. It's different than the Miranda warning that you see on Law & Order. It talks to you about just having a phone book made available to you and making some phone calls to attorneys to try to give you the appropriate advice on whether or not you should take a test.
Which is why all the attorneys advertise in the Yellow Pages.
They advertise in Yellow Pages, and a lot of attorneys will have their overnight cell phone number on there.
Interesting. Okay.
So that is not that's not a right, an absolute right. It is what we call a limited right to counsel. So you can't wait for 2 or 3 hours for an attorney to pick up their phone. Usually it will be given about 25 to 35 minutes to make that decision. If you can't get a hold of an attorney, you've got to make that decision on your own.
And most people probably don't have an attorney on retainer.
No, they don't usually have an attorney on retainer, but most attorneys, if they'll pick up that phone call, they'll be happy to provide you 5 minutes of advice, and usually that's all it will take.
All right. If you do find yourself in that situation, better be prepared for a lot of cost.
Like an extra how much?
Well, typically the cost just to reinstate your driver's license in Minnesota, if you're over .08, is $680.
$680.
Yep.
Plus you've got court costs.
Plus you usually got fines that can range anywhere from $400, maybe on the low end, to $1,000 on the high end. You're going to have some attorney costs that are sometimes built into that. You're going to have costs associated
Your
with
insurance.
your insurance. Yep. So,
and then you get to have those super cool W plates.
yeah,
W series.
The super cool W series, and one
Is that after your first time?
One of the recent changes has been that it used to be just a second offense. You would have
Okay.
a W series, but now if you have a first offense and you're over .16 on that first offense, it's also a W series for a year. And that's any vehicle not only that you own, but also that you have an ownership interest in. So if you have your vehicle with your significant other and you get a DUI,
driving around with a W plate.
they're going to be driving around with that W series, and they will be very happy with you
For a whole
I'm
year?
sure.
for a whole year.
Wow.
All right. If anybody needs to get a hold of you, Zach, or any of the attorneys at Meshbesher and Spence, what's the best way to do that?
Give us a call at 507-280-8090 or get a hold of us online at www.meshbesher.com.
Bottom line is, call a cab.
Absolutely.